In terms of the superintendent evaluation, I have shared with you what we currently are using, and last year when we were highlighting the superintendent evaluation tool, we had some discussions around wanting to possibly implement the tool that ASB has developed. So thank you for being with us today, and hopefully this will glean some insight into next steps for us and evaluation.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Beautiful Kansas School. I love it. I'm Julie Dagan. I'm from the Arizona School Board Association, and I'm also a serving board member. Work terms and finishing up in December. Kelly, can you just say hi and introduce yourself and hear your voice?
Sure. Hi, my name is Kelly Allen. I live with my parents.
No problem. How long have you been on the board?
2 years.
2 years. Okay, so you're newish. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, thanks for calling in. So you can hear this firsthand, and I can answer any questions. I did ask Naya to send you the documents that we were going to be looking at. So, okay, great. So we're going to start. We'll just have the PowerPoint. We'll start with the PowerPoint. Just go through the slides. So I know Steve. I know you. So we're familiar with one another. So I'm just going to get started. This was evaluation time, and the person being evaluated is nervous, and the person doing the evaluation is nervous. So this is a little cartoon I found. You're out here because you're supposed to receive a performance review. I'm out here because I'm supposed to give one. And when we started to put this new evaluation tool together, one of the superintendents, we did it in conjunction with Arizona School District, so we had the superintendents and we're never helping you put the tool together. And one of the superintendents said to me, "Our workers are nervous when they do this." And I'm like, "Absolutely they are. This is like a big deal." And she was like, "Wow, I mean, I was always nervous when it was happening, but I didn't realize anyone else was nervous." And well, we're all nervous when we do something like this. So, and in creation of the tool, this is kind of a guiding light for us, which is kind of our North Star. We're putting the tool together. No matter the specific position, evaluating needs are basic. You need a thorough and fair evaluation based on performance, and designed to encourage improvement in both the person being evaluated and the school district. And this would apply to anyone who's getting an evaluation, not just the superintendent. They could apply to the board, and the board does a self-evaluation. That applies to the board as well, and to teachers and all employees. So this was just something that really helped us frame why we were doing the superintendent evaluation tool, and some of the things that we wanted it to achieve, which was to improve performance, allow for the recognition of areas of improvement, and ultimately ensure the success of every student in the school district.
I like that. That's really.
Yeah, it gets you right there, right? Yeah. And if you have any questions, Kelly, if you have questions, just jump in, okay? So the other thing about evaluation is it is a non-delegable duty of the school board. No one else can do the evaluation of the superintendent. And it is something that has to be conducted annually by statute. So it's not the superintendent made that up or the board made that up. The actual legislature said this has to be done. So that's one of the things, and what we found over the past few years is we're doing all sorts of different evaluation tools. And some of them not doing any tool at all, just talking in executive session. So, this was something we wanted to give boards the ability to have a tool that they can use that is good for the board, but also something the superintendent can look at and say, okay, this is what I'm going to be on. This is where they're coming from. So we'll talk more specifically about the tool later on. It should, one of the things is it has to have duties of the superintendent in it. And a lot of tools don't have the comprehensive duties of the superintendent. So we're really excited about this. And the governing board is accountable to the community. So you need to be able to demonstrate as board members that you are doing your job in evaluating the superintendent. So, but it also has to be a good tool for the superintendent because the superintendent needs to know where the board's at, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what their priorities are. So, hopefully this tool will help achieve that. It should be manageable for both the superintendent and the board. Now, people who have gone from a little, a very basic tool or no tool to this tool, sometimes get a little bit overwhelmed because it is a lot of information. But we believe that it is going to be make the whole process a lot more manageable for everybody. So, she'll have to identify goals and to talk about the progress of those goals during the evaluation cycle. So not a one and done. This is talking at least twice a year about the evaluation. And it should accurately and objectively, to the extent possible, obviously reflect the performance of the student. So one of the things that we often get caught up in is we don't like the way it's being done, but we have to look at is what we asked to be done being done. And I use this example when I talk to you guys a lot. I ask my husband to do the laundry. I give him some high level things, but don't wash the whites and the darks together. But between the laundry room and the clean drawers in my bedroom, I really can't have any say about how he does that. So if I wanted to do it, I need to give him the ability to do it. I like the way he's doing it, but if I want clean underwear, I want him to do the laundry. So this is kind of that way. I don't have to, you don't have to always love the personalities of superintendent. You don't have to always love the way things are being done. But if it's done and the goal is reached, that's performance. So, and sometimes that's challenging because we are all humans, right? We have our thoughts. So a couple of things to recognize. The vast majority of board members have no experience with training in new performance reviews at all. So we come on to, we're elected onto the board, we're expected to do this work, but no one has really trained us. And so that's why ASBA and ASA come together to say, this is an important component of the job of the board and the superintendent. How can we get this process? Not codified, but how can we get it a process that every board knows what they have to do, when they have to do it. And then the superintendent is the only employee in the system whose perspectives of 5 different people are part of the evaluation, but you only have one voice collectively. That's a good word. So that makes this process even more challenging. So that's something that we also hope that this evaluation tool will help people come to consensus more easily on some of the things. So the Blueberry story. Jamie Bulmer still is, I believe, an executive of an ice cream company in the Midwest. Years ago, in the 90s, he and a bunch of business executives decided that schools should be run as businesses. It's easy. The formula is there. There's no problem. Just take the principles of business, apply them to schools, and you'll have success. So he tells the story of being at a school district doing a presentation, the policy presentation, and one of the teachers said, "So I heard you make good ice cream." He said, "Oh, you make the best ice cream in the world." She said, you use the finest ingredients. Like, oh yeah, I went through all of this, all the ingredients and. She said, oh, okay. She said, and your blueberry ice cream's won awards. He said, yeah, it has. It's won awards. So what do you do if you get a shipment of blueberries that aren't to your standards? He said, oh, I send it back. And he tells a story, and he says, as soon as I said I send them back, I realized she has totally tracked me. She has, I'm in a trap now, and I'm not going to get out without getting a little time And she said, we don't send anyone back. We get who we get in the classroom, we get who we get in the school district. We want the outcome to be the same, but the input is vastly different. And that's what makes an evaluation like this so challenging, because we're working with humans, not widgets. So there's a lot of principles of business that absolutely can be applied to a school district. You want your finance department to run really well, you want your facilities to run these business principles, your busing, there's all sorts of things. But when you're starting looking at student success and student achievement, you've got to really think about the students that are coming in, the situations in which they are existing, and situations in which they come to you from, whether it be hunger, whether it be homelessness. There's all sorts of things that teachers have to deal with in their classroom that businesses don't. They just get to send stuff back. We're not going to send anything back. And that teacher just went through a whole list with him. He was on stage and said, I was embarrassed. And I thought, you know what? You're right. And my whole perspective changed on applying business principles wholesale to school districts. So,
this morning, Dr. Valenzuela presented at Rotary, he's the superintendent.
yeah, this is how we do it.
But he was, alluding to our jobs as public service workers. We're public service workers, just like the fire department, just like the police department. We are public service employers, and it's not like you say, because one of the questions was about charter schools. And this whole concept that we get, and we have to serve our community and our public regardless of who is moving in and where they're coming from.
And we all know that every single student who walks through University Valley, they have the ability to see, you just have to dig deep sometimes to find where that is and to make that connection. So it's a little bit different animal when you're doing an evaluation in a school district system. So what we want to do is make the most of the evaluation process. It will enhance performance, focus on the goals and priorities of the district. Really important, and I have some data that I'll show you a little bit later about that. Allow for transparent measures of performance. So when we talk about the tool, we can talk about what does this look like, and how the board and superintendent should get together and go through the tool behaviors regulations to say, what does this look like to you? What does this mean to you? So that everyone's on kind of the same wavelength in terms of what's contained in the tool. Create reasonable targets for improvement, identify areas for improvement in the board superintendent relationship. I don't know if you can see this on this triangle here, right? The ASA logos together. And when we were putting this together, I was trying to figure out how to put both the logos in a way that looked good. And my son, who is an engineer, when he was a kid, he said to me, "Did you know that the strongest shape in nature is a triangle?" He's like 12. I'm like, who knows that? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's true, and that's why we put this in the triangle, because that superintendent board relationship is strong, and it's a good working relationship. Many things can be accomplished. So, identifying areas of improvement for the board superintendent relationships is important. Providing clarity to the process. It also allows for the employee superintendent to ask questions and understand the perception of performance and provide additional information for consideration. It also provides justification and evidence for employment decisions that the board may make in the course of the superintendent's employment in this district. So those are a few things. A couple of things to think about in terms of transparency. You do the evaluation of the meeting, in the session. Is it written or is it oral? We would say that some of it has to be written because that is how the board can provide the transparency and accountability that the community deserves. Do you do summary readings? Do you do detailed writing evaluations? So there's lots of different things to think about. Community interest versus employee privacy. The superintendent evaluation is the only evaluation in the system that is a public record, which is totally different from a teacher evaluation or any other employee evaluation. So you want to talk about the superintendent's performance, but you also, there's a kind of a balance in that you have to maintain that. How much information is necessary to address the public interest and concerns versus the will of the information from the employee's recommendations and so forth. So those are just some transparency things to consider. One of the questions we ask right away is, how did your board superintendent team prepare for the evaluation cycle? And we call it a cycle because it is a circle. It's a continuous improvement model of moving forward and making the most progress you can. So this is a sample evaluation cycle that we just created. Yours doesn't have to look like this, but your board and superintendent team should decide what it looks like. So we just start with the superintendent prepares for an evaluation cycle. The new cycle and goals are set for the upcoming year. About halfway through the year, the superintendent does a self-assessment, discusses it with the whole board. Board can then provide input. If board members think the superintendent is wildly off, then that's a good time to say, yeah, but that's not what we want as a body. So that is why we recommend at least a half-yearly evaluation touch point in the middle of the cycle. And then the year-end evaluation. So that hopefully that half-yearly gives you, the superintendent gives them the clarity they need moving forward and the direction that they need to go. And then at the end of the cycle, you meet, you do the evaluation. You generally come out of executive session and then decide how you're going to share the information. Something that my district does, where I'm a board member, is we talk about superintendent's goals 2 or 3 times a year. We just want that to be transparent. These are the things that the superintendent's working on, and here's the progress towards those goals.
And we've just done our timeline.
Oh, good.
So it's based on the PPIRA, and we just put in the dates. And then what's in red is when it's executive session at 5 and the board meeting. So that just keeps us on track.
Yes. And the thing about policy is you gotta follow it. So if it's written in the policy, that's the important part. So any thoughts or questions up until this time? I just want to stop talking because you can have
No, I heard, so far.
Okay, great.
So we have on our timeline, October, superintendent meets and formally board to discuss progress made on the whole team and MCC about the overall performance. So we are behind because they wanted to adopt and approve an evaluation instrument prior to October to talk about goals.
You're getting dangerously close to October.
Yes. So, we're kind of not sure now
Yeah, well, I think, I mean, as long as you're transparent about that, and you are saying, you're providing a status update to the community, this is what's going on with the superintendent evaluation. We want it to be at this point, we're not there yet, we're going to be working on it, this is our new target. So I think as long as you're, again, transparent and accountable, I think you'll be fine. But I wouldn't just not say anything about it.
Right.
Yeah. So the evaluation tool, again, we'll talk a little bit more about the tool, but, it's pretty solid. I mean, you can still do some tweaks to it, and we'll talk about that, but, yeah, I think we could approve something like this and just tweak it a little bit.
Well, when we talked about it originally, the whole thing is going through every single indicator and talking about what does that look like. It's very hard to get 5 members of the board to agree with what the supporting data and document should be. And it would take hours.
Right. Well, so here's the thing.
Indicator.
Yeah. So I want to go through the tool page by page. I do want to do that with you, just to kind of talk through what the intention of some of those things are. Because one piece of documentation or data could apply to maybe 10 indicators. You're going to be reusing some of these things because it is purposeful that there are themes woven throughout every single part of the evaluation. That's not an accident. We thought about that because when you're talking about fiscal accountability, you have to talk about fiscal accountability in operations. You have to talk about it in instructional leadership. You have to talk about it in community relations. So there's lots of different places that you can work in data points that every single one of them has to have this specific data point. So, but we can go through that.
And a lot of that stems through is, I mean, and some want it kind of black and white, right? Gray area, it's like, okay, well, the number isn't 75 or better, then sometimes you can't put a number to.
Yeah, I mean, it's the blueberry, right?
Yeah. There you go.
There are some things that are difficult to quantify when you're talking about humans. So there are some areas that are going to be challenging. But remember also that there's 5 of you, and you can average out a conversation. Whether you assign a score to these, so we can go through that.
Okay.
Go through the tool. Okay, so this is just the new evaluation tool. This is the setup of the tool. So there are 6 domains in the evaluation tool. Under each domain, there's a number of standards, and under each standard, there's a number of performance indicators. So it's pretty straightforward. We think that this setup, it also kind of mirrors some of the teacher evaluation tools that are being used throughout the state. So we thought that was important as well because teachers are being evaluated all the time. And they want their superiors to have accountability too, right? And to be evaluated. So here are the domains: leadership and district culture, and then the bullets under each are the standards. So each domain has a number of standards underneath that you can see. I'm not going to read them to you. You're thing for reading. But so those are the first 2: leadership and district culture, and instructional leadership. Because the superintendent is the instructional leader of the district, we had to, and student achievement is the number 1 goal of governing boards, had to be able to promise this. Organizational management, so this is like the budget, finance, operations, and human resources, also huge components. So it doesn't mean the superintendent is doing every single one of these indicators. We'll look at that. You might have someone doing it for you. And you get the benefit of their hard work. And that is reflected in the evaluation. So I don't want to say that the superintendent is doing every single one of these performance indicators his or herself. that would be inaccurate. That's the reason that you have employees, and that's the reason that we give school districts some structure, and some organization, some way that we lay out an organization so that the superintendent's not doing everything. Although I would guess in a rural school district like this, the superintendent does a lot. That, for example, my superintendent in Phoenix does not do.
I agree.
Yes. So the equity, diversity, and inclusion, and this is really about just making sure that your students and families are taken care of. That's really what that's about. Communications and community relations. So how do you communicate internally and externally? What does family engagement support look like, and community engagement? So you have both the positive of having a small community to serve, which can sometimes be negative because everybody knows everybody and all that. I mean, I grew up in a small town, Pennsylvania. My dad was a high school teacher. He was the neatest teacher on campus. I totally get that you can't do anything without being watched. Because that was my life growing up. So, there's positives and negatives to everything in my life. And then the sixth one is board governance and policy. So this is really how the board superintendent teamwork, policy development, implementation, and any strategic plan or goals. Go in that category. So we do, you'll see in the tool that we really encourage the superintendent to have a number of goals for the year, whether that's 1, 2, 3, 4, that's up to the board superintendent team. What are you prioritizing? What are you most focused on in the coming year? But we do ask that your goals be written as SMART goals. So they are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So the general, all students in Arizona will score proficient on English language art state testing. Not specific when, by when, and all, can every single student do that in one single year? Probably not. So you have to really think about the way you write your goals. And everybody knows this. But it's hard sometimes to put into practice, so we just encourage you to do that.
So we do have SMART goals for our district goals that we're going to be held accountable for as a school. So when we put in our 10% of continental students grade 13 as measured by ASA, we're below proficiency in June 2022, we'll move to proficiency in the by June 2023.
Yeah.
So we have.
That's a great SMART goal. That's something.
So and we did base our goals on academic rigor and excellence, safe and orderly learning environment, financial strength. Those are our three.
That's right.
District goals that we developed are site leadership.
Your site leadership goals. Okay, great. And if you, I mean, I don't know if you talk about those in public. I think the governing board meeting presentation on that would be great for the community here and know that you're really focused on those things.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Do you get many public who come to your board meetings? Yeah. The only reason we get some is because we do cult in the month, like a student in the month.
Oh.
So they bring their kids to get pizza and an award, and then after that.
Yes. Well, we do have that phenomenon. We do a lot of student awards and stuff at the beginning of the meeting. And then there's like a slow trickle out the door. And then when you get to the really important part, it's just the wrong people there, right? Like the regulars, some employees, some community members.
We do my superintendent's report first and the principal report, because it is about community and student involvement and student data. So we do those two reports before we do the student recognitions. Because then they need to make the data.
Call it every term just a little bit.
It's a little tricky. Which is not a bad idea. And we have a lot of at every meeting, there's at least a couple. And a couple people who come and say the same thing every single
Kind of peaks and valleys, when you say.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have none, other times you've got.
Yeah, and we used to have none before the pandemic. Almost. And that's just changed
That
everything.
number of critics.
Yeah. But also, we have 27,000 students. So a lot more people to make upset. So this is, does your board share the types of evidence and data you'd like to see as part of the evaluation? And this is where, again, you've got to have some conversations. And the board has to come to consensus on what they want to see. Individually, we all want to see what we want to see. And I can't tell you, sometimes being part of the board, being part of democracy means that the majority rules. And sometimes it may be that your project, what you think is most important is not what the majority thinks is most important. And sometimes we have to swallow that. We just have to say, okay, I didn't get it this time. I'm gonna keep talking about it so that maybe will join me in my interest in that way. And that's the same way this has to be. We have to come to consensus around documentation and data. And it has to be the majority rules. It can't be that all 5 board members get to say exactly what they want and only what they want. Because that's not how this works. You only have power as a forum in a publicly noticed meeting. So that's sometimes hard to get used to, especially if you're a board member or brand new. That's a little bit hard. So as we go through the
Do
action,
you see that most of them are driven or proposed by the superintendent in terms of the evidence?
The evidence, yes.
Right, to say,
Yes.
this is evidence I have, and the board can discuss it.
yeah. Because you don't want to send the superintendent on like a wild goose chase. Because they ask you for tons of different pieces of documentation because that takes them away from their actual job. Right, making sure that students are successful. So, you have there's a couple of things you do. But in general, the superintendent's going to know what data they need and they would like to show. Now, if there's data out there that the board wants to see, and the majority of the board wants to see this to support something in the evaluation, I think the superintendent should provide that. But again, you can't provide everything that everyone wants to see.
Well, I agree, because for the most part, the superintendents live and agree on that stuff every day.
Right.
And it's training to do that.
Right.
Where we're trained in whatever profession we might have.
And the other thing is sometimes you are living and breathing every day, so sometimes you don't see what's right in front of you. So sometimes the board members can say, hey, you told us about this report. I don't see that as part of your documentation. I think that'd be really helpful. And it's like oh, yeah. But I work with it every day. It's not a big deal to me. It's just what it is. So, there is data taken. There has to be. Okay. So the tool that we're going to talk about also, has the provision of data to support the indicators. It links the performance indicators to goals and performance pay. So when we look at the tool, you'll see where those columns are. Allows for domain based. So there's 6 domains, and he thought it was important that we're to be able to customize the evaluation tools to meet the needs of the district in the current evaluation cycle. So a couple of things that that boards have told me that used the pilot. One was they really wanted to focus on communication. Their external and internal stakeholder communication. So they weighted that domain higher than they did some of the other ones. In my school district, we used this tool as a pilot. We have a brand new superintendent, so we weighted domain 6 higher than some of the others. Because we really wanted the superintendent to focus on that board superintendent relationship, the board governance and policy piece. So that domain that's totally adaptable for what we're doing. And it probably will change every year or every couple, depending on, how far out your goals are. You can add performance indicators to this if you want to. If you think we missed something, if the board and superintendent think we missed something, you can add a performance indicator in under any of these domains or standards. But we would argue that the performance indicators that are in here are actually reflections of the superintendent's job, which we think these are the baseline performance indicators that should be in there. And then we hope that it provides some structure for meaningful and robust evaluation. So we did get some data from our pilot and wanted to share that because it's important to see how people responded to it. So this is both board members and superintendents, this data here. And look, everyone thought the tool was effective in generating discussion around district goals, which is the focus. That was the purpose of this. So we were excited about that. The accompanying handbook was helpful. Most people thought it was helpful. So that was good. I had a couple of comments. When we look at it, you'll see there's some appendix in the back where we have some stuff that we think would really help towards sort of conversation. So we'll look at that a little bit. So then this is data that board members gave us. The tool is effective in helping them understand the competencies of the superintendent's job, and it was effective to hold the superintendent accountable, which again we wanted. And then the superintendent said the tool accurately captured their key competencies, and it provided more clarity around the governing board's expectations. And that is the one that I'm most proud of, because I think if you have a clear idea of where you're supposed to go, you get there. And so that, and I had a superintendent say to me, I'm almost embarrassed to tell you this, but this really helped me articulate what my job is. I knew I did all this, but I didn't understand that I could articulate it the same way. But this has helped me understand, what I do, how I do it, and how I talk about it. So I think, that we're excited about that. Now, there were some people, there were definitely board members who were like, this is too long, this is too much, it's, but
I have some superintendent colleagues saying, yeah,
I know. Yeah. But at the same time, what I have found out, especially with the superintendents who have used it, is this is way better than the nebulous conversation that I used to have. Even though it's longer, even though it's a little bit more cumbersome, but it's also the first time anyone ever used it. So as you get,
And you know how many, are there any school districts using it now?
Oh, yeah.
That time is decided, do you know?
Yeah. I mean, my district facility use it. I just was on the CD and Randy's superintendent, they're using it. I've met with Chandler's superintendent. It's going out to lots of districts. There's a lot of good buzz about it, and people are really excited. So, and we're not really tracking it because we're not charging anything for this. This is, totally a benefit of the membership. So the tool itself, the handbook, that's just districts. That's yours for free. We want you to use the tool. So, and I've spoken with, I would guesstimate, I've probably spoken in the past month about a dozen superintendents who want to use the tool. So, good, it just came out in August, so.
Well, your presentation at a law conference was very well received, and you had a lot of people in.
We did. This looks familiar, I'm sorry, but
No, but it's,
yeah. Okay, so this is where kind of I wanted to just go through the tool. Do you want to take a 5-minute break, or are we good?
No.
Oh, good, okay.
I'm going to run to the rest.
Yes, that sounds good.
Okay, great.
Kelly, we'll be back. We'll be right back. Okay.
Yeah, they're there. Yeah, the alarm going off and on.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it was probably for you just to send it.
Probably. Yes. No, not working.
It's 100% on there. That's amazing. So I think we told you in Phoenix that back in the day, our first couple of evaluations were, how did her all keep up with good work?
Well, they didn't ever really like that.
No, they
It was a
were.
flat had one that was, I had another one that had, it was on a point system, and it wasn't, but it definitely was not. I mean, we cleaned it up and have done, a lot of changes to this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I know before I was on my school board, that's kind of what it was. There was just like a, so this is going pretty well.
But what I really do need clarity around, what the superintendent's job is.
Yeah.
Because, when you look at the 6 domains, that really encompasses everything. And I think that a lot of board members, especially,
Please excuse the interruption. At this time, volleyball and football players are to be released. At this time, football and volleyball players are to be released. The bus will leave at 2:15 near the free bowl. Thank you.
so they really don't know, even when it's a community involvement. At what level they can do, and there's some superintendents that are very involved, and some that aren't,
Right.
not as involved, but, it's a lot.
Yeah. And, we do a new work on orientation and this summer, so we'll, our labs are doing anything on that. And we're going to use the tool to help new board members understand the process.
Oh, yeah.
Because we really think we nailed it.
I think you have.
So that's exciting.
We stuck you in a room and said, okay, write down everything that you did for a week. You still missed a good chunk. didn't you?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Because then I go back to my calendar.
All right.
Okay.
Well, and mark on your calendar, like all the little emergencies. All the little things that pop up that are significant, but.
Yes. Yeah, because in between your calendar, you're doing all the ongoing stuff.
Right.
That needs to happen.
Yeah. When I was not on the board in my district, we asked the superintendent to do a presentation to parents, the day of the elected superintendent. And he did that, and I was like, that's not even half of what you do today. This is what we need. I was like, I know that day you did these 3 things. I was like, oh, yeah. So That's not a reflection, that's what's happening.
Yes.
So, okay, so let's look at the tools itself. On page 3 of the tools, you see the indicator rating scale. This is something that we would encourage the board and superintendent to discuss. What is highly effective meaning? What is effective meaning? We have some criteria there. But I'll use this example. When I was on, I've been on a board with a number of different board members over the years. And there have been board members who were so scared that they were going to lose the superintendent. They didn't want the superintendent to go in those districts. So they just everything that person did was right, which was not an effective evaluation. Because then, you knew there were things you wanted to improve. And it wasn't a reflection on the superintendent being a bad employee. It was a reflection on what the changing demographics, the changing dynamics. So I would definitely have a conversation about what that looks like. And effective is, that's what you should be getting. That's what the job is, effective is there. Developing, my superintendent this year, this was his first year. He had, in the beginning, in that first half yearly evaluation, fair amount of development because he was new. And he ranks himself that way. He's, I'm still working on this. So it's not having to be developing. But it could mean that there's a new task that you're doing, something that, or it's a new job position, there's all sorts of reasons. And then ineffective, just isn't doing the job. And then there are people that applies to, so how do you do?
That was good because I got stuck last year. We ranked it 1 through 5 or something like that, and I was trying to do A, B, C, E. And we all were definitely not on the same page as to what a highly effective was. This is difficult.
So I've trained a couple of boards in looking at this rating scale. Some are using it where they're assigning a number. So highly effective is 4, 3, 2, 1. Other school districts are doing, one school district said, it could be A, B, C, D, but ineffective is really failing, so it's not a D. And I was like, so maybe it's a C. Why do you can decide that. And that's the beauty of how you want to use the scale. You can customize it for your school district. So if you look at the actual domain one, and I just talked through a couple of things on the page, you can see at the top right-hand corner, you can see the domain weight percentage. So that's where we would ask the board superintendent who would rate it on how you're going to prioritize each of these domains. And every single one of the domains has a domain statement. The standard has a standard statement. So it gives you an idea of what the intent of the domain is, what the intent of the standard is, and it incorporates then the indicators that are there. When you look at this, you can see the highly effective, developing, ineffective. You can see where the supporting data and documents, that column is. Now that doesn't mean that every single one of those has to happen. It is pretty difficult to measure with data how the superintendent has ethically and professionally and personally like that. You may not have a data point for that. That could be one that's a little bit more. That's a little bit more guide. But you have to look at it objectively as well. So not we put that column in not because each one of the indicators has to have data, but to allow the superintendent to provide data where it exists. And one thing I don't, one of the things that we want to not have is there to be so much data that the board is overwhelmed and can't get rid of it. That it's just, I can't even begin to look at all of this, so I don't know anything. So, the data, supporting data and documents is something, it's kind of it's like you see something about it kind of.
Well, the superintendent's time is more valuable too, and reduce overkill.
Yeah. We did also put goal related there, whether yes or no, whether it's related to one of the goals. That's good superintendent right now. But I would recommend going through that as a goal related piece. I know my board said to our superintendent, that's related to this goal. And he was like, oh, yeah. So, and then also are you going to base performance on it? So that's why we set that up in that way, and I think, especially for the performance, it really helps you quantify what that looks like. And not all districts give performance pay, so they may just not use that model at all, which is fine. And then we did have a little space for comments in there if you want to do that. But again, I would say you need to look at each of the indicators. So let's go to page 5. That's district culture indicator 2. Is visible and accessible in the school district and community. This is a perfect place for a board to have a conversation. Because that, you could provide a data. I go to everyone's meeting, I go to every meeting, I go here, I do this, and that. But maybe there's something that the board member has an idea about that they'd like to see. And that's a great conversation to have. Does the whole board, does the board collectively want to add that to the agenda?
So I'm glad you mentioned it, because this is one of the ones that when we first looked at this was, how do we tie the evidence to that? Do we say, well, you've got to attend at least 12 Rotary meetings a year and 10 this, which, that's not the, I got it, that it wasn't the intent.
No.
So it was but the thought is every point has to be totally different.
Right.
And measurable.
Right. And I mean, you can measure that.
Yeah.
That's like the whole board wants a complete list of everything you've done in the community. Fine, but not everyone does, and then it's not a priority of the superintendent.
We could also say, hey, you used to really go out a lot, and now it seems like you're not. So, what's your plan on doing that?
Right.
And
like for example, this is one that, we got a new superintendent, our former superintendent, every quarter went to every school, which doesn't seem like a lot, except we have 46. So, but that was something that we got, the board got unbelievable feedback from our staff. He was there. He was in my school, and he came in my classrooms, listening about my ideas. So that now has become an expectation of the superintendent because it is so well received. So there are things that you can customize, right? Like that's not something anyone had ever done. But that for our board is a priority because it helps the student and staff around. Yeah.
so if you just go to just for example.
Yeah.
Would we in a actual evaluation just get, or even in indicator number 2, give a couple examples? Regularly attends Rotary, the Spirit of Growth does Spirit Day and our Early Day and our blah, blah, blah. Not every single one, but just throw a couple examples in there.
So one of the superintendents who's in pilot went through each of the indicators and just made a list. So here's where PCC was done, this is where this was done. So it was just kind of and that was the superintendent in helping us. So,
And this is just like, I'm showing her it's the supporting evidence. So this is the existing document.
oh, that's,
And then I would put in all my supporting evidence, which is that one.
right.
And then here, and then I would tie it to the indicator.
Yep, I think that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, you have to make sure,
Because this was a lot.
it is a lot,
Supporting.
but it's what you do.
Right.
So,
And does anybody, when they, they're going through these and we're building our supporting document column mainly, it's just said, no, I don't care about that.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely, there are some boards who did the pilots that said, you know, that's not what's most important anymore. And so, we don't need to see any data on that. We're just gonna, and I'm trying to think of one that's fairly easy. And maybe like if we go to domain to six and go board relations, I mean, that's one that people can be like, we have a great relationship. We don't need a ton of documentation about that. We know this is important and it's a strong relationship. Show me evidence, not I'm evidence, but I know that it is.
And I'm thinking back on five, on particular increase in spirit of growth and opportunity among staff. So I'm thinking our professional development directors are here, our pre-service days, we've done our rotations for training, we've allowed teachers to come back and report what they did at a conference. If you know how, what they shared, if you know how we're
How many
them.
teachers you have in master's programs?
Yes.
And, you know, just showing it, we know that we're in a cycle of continuous improvement all the time
Yes.
and reading it wrong. That's who we are as a district, that's who we are as employees, so, yeah, I mean,
Could you come up and, you know,
yeah, could you come up with a document for every single one of these? Probably, but isn't, is that what you want your superintendent to focus on? Probably not. You know, you want to be focused on doing the work of the district and making sure students have research information. So, yeah, so again, I would just recommend going through this, you know, page by page, and not like indicator one, blah, 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 saying my kind of questions. This is a situation where you get this to the board beforehand, they read through it and mark some ones that they need some clarity on. And then you have a conversation with the board and superintendent. So I'm not saying go through it, you know, line by line, but really make sure everyone understands what.
and that's what we did, they took it and they're supposed to read it and discuss it, and we were good at looking into plugging in some supporting data and documents that we thought were.
But I think if you were able to have a couple hours of quiet time, you can knock that out. Because you don't know the answer, so you got a cheat sheet here to do it.
So, the other
It
thing,
looks overbearing. But
yeah, it does, it looks like a lot. I want to go to page 16. In the document. So this is kind of a summary of all of the domains that exist in the tool. And it's 16. Okay. So this is what this is what my board uses the final evaluation for the superintendent. This is what we're trying to compile. And then we wrote a little paragraph, you know, that said, you know, doing this grade, these are things we must see focus on. And
And that's what was the public information.
that's what was public.
It wasn't.
It wasn't everything. That's something you, the board, is superintendent. But this was intended to give, you know, a snapshot of the superintendent's performance. And this is something, you know, you could discuss in an open meeting, or you don't have to. So, you did create that because we wanted something. And this, again, this is the consensus document. It's not, each board member doesn't get to give one of these. It's the board's one document. And that's
Are
hard.
they total 100? Is that what you did, or what?
Yeah, we did 100. You know,
Typically,
looking back, when I'm looking at this and thinking, oh, we should only have 5 domains, but we couldn't narrow it down anymore. We tried, but we couldn't. So, yeah, so the domain weights we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not even.
I'm already feeling a lot better about it. I mean, I Right.
Because ours was 5, the one year current was 5.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we also included a page for goals. At the last page, basically 17 goals. And this is where you can also kind of indicate what domains the goal is related to, what standards and indicators. So it's easy for board members to say, oh, remember these, oh, I see what she's saying. How she says then she did it. That also can provide documentation, so you don't have to write it twice, right? This goal, you go look at this.
Okay.
So you would say, you know, domain 1, standard, whatever it is, and then an indicator.
Okay.
So we wanted to make sure you could break them all together.
There's a editable version available that, or at least for the boxes that we can type in.
Yeah, this page is, we have a Word document, but it doesn't translate great from the PDF. So that's something that I'm going to be working on in the next week or so.
Sometimes you can have a PDF, a fillable PDF.
Available PDF, yeah. So I gotta figure that out for our. The other thing I thought we could just kind of briefly go over is the superintendent evaluation handbook. Because this was helpful for a lot of people in the process, and I don't want to belabor the whole thing, but we do talk about making the most of the responsibility, the common sense of the tool. We did give a little bit more. We included the performance ratings, and in it we gave an example, so that you could see what highly effective would have been, what effective would have been, what developing would have been, and what ineffective would have been, with the same domain. So, and the same performance indicator. That was one thing that we did get feedback from pilot. We didn't have this initially in the handbook. We just had kind of brief information, and we did get feedback, but I need a little bit more. So that we decided to
Yeah, our last meeting, we asked, we said, you know, what help if we could, blank out the names if you needed to, we see a completed, that has an example. But now, I think after itself, you're opening our eyes now. Oh.
Yeah, but this is good, this is just the same, it's the same evidence with the same,
Great.
standard. It's talking about what would be highly effective and effective.
Yeah, so this is our definition, it's not my definition, or Kelly's definition, you know, it's,
Yeah.
here's the definition.
Yeah. So the thing that we also did was like highly effective is, this is above and beyond. That's the above and beyond rating. The effective is doing the job as expected. Developing is needs improvement. And then the ineffective is, this is not working out. This is not going to help us. So, but I think that, I hope that the evidence will, the examples will really help.
And I guess also with that, it really comes that trust, because in board members, they don't work with other superintendents, so a lot of them don't have any idea of what above and beyond is in terms of my colleagues or in terms of other districts, but you know, when we talk about rural school superintendent responsibilities, like a lot of my friends are like, why are you doing that? It's like, well, because there's nobody, I don't have a department, I don't have a Title I department. That's why I don't do it, you know? So a lot of them are just, oh my gosh, but, you know, like above and beyond in a rural school or in a larger district, right? You're gonna.
It would look different. It will look different. Not it could.
It will.
100%.
Yes. Oh, one of the meetings I was in the other day, we were talking about how being a superintendent is 50% political.
The bigger ones I mentioned.
And well, like even for arts, I mean, you're playing the political game constantly with parents and with community members and with board members, and and that was one of the ahas that most superintendents have, because you go into the superintendency thinking you're going to be more of the instructional leader, the community person, and that you're not really prepared for the political part of the job, which is 50% of your job.
I had this superintendent who did my pilot, and we were doing a little training on Zoom with the pilot districts. And he says to me, let's face it, if the three workers don't like you, you're out. I was like, wait, that's what we want to avoid. We want to avoid the, I don't like you, you're out. We want you to be able to say, here are the reasons, let's use this tool. Here are the reasons that we're not happy. Instead of just like, we don't like you. But he's not wrong either.
When you look at the ineffective piece, it's like, okay, I know that if I'm making it effective, where I'm going to be looking for another job. Because my contract won't be renewed.
Right.
So, what it is.
Yep. So we then, in the handbook, we tried to start with goals, which we went through, performance A, some about page 6. On page 8, we have a similar, kind of, graphic there, just a sample evaluation cycle. Some superintendents are doing quarterly meetings with the board, going through the goals and the evaluation. Some are just doing like happy. We would recommend them happy. We talk about some of the best practices and common mistakes in the evaluation process, like pages 9 and 10. One of the things that's in here that happens a lot with performance evaluation, but we kind of took out of the equation is at the top of page 10 is central attendance, central tendency. Where you have, your ratings are 1 through 5. And 3 is just kind of like a cop out. Because you don't want to say anything. So we took that out. We were like, we're not going to, you gotta make a choice. Like, we're elected to do a job, this is a job. And then the appendix that we have an evaluation readiness checklist. We have examples of evidence, and all of this may not apply to every single board for superintendent evaluation. Because you may be focusing on different things. We have the technology plan, which is one, right? That's just one of them. But you just updated your technology last year. You're not going to do that. You know what it is. So, again, these are just examples. There's probably hundreds more on this list. But we just wanted to give some examples. And
I think this would be a good way, when you talk about there's certain data that board members would like to see. This would be a good place to start, to say, what I really, this is what I'm really interested in, and I really would like to see this data. And, you have, 3 to 5 evidence, pieces that, everybody wants to.
Yeah, there's certain pieces that are gonna be more important to me than they might be, Kelly, since she's here, that is more important to her. Which doesn't make any of them wrong.
Right.
It just is, I think that your facilities plan is a.
Right.
Okay. And then, the appendix C, these reflective questions. So this is the board member, a board member in county that said to me, I was so overwhelmed with the tool. But I looked at these reflective questions, and then it gave me a much better understanding of what I need to think about as I'm doing that.
I like this.
So, I think this is really helpful if people are having that, I can't break this down, it's too much for me. I think using those reflective questions will be helpful. And that's.
I agree, I think maybe this is the way we need to opt it to, saying, okay, let's listen to the tape. And, you know, and I want to be sure we're all gonna walk through these 10. Just like in class, you know, and just a step of the platform.
And I think these questions are good for your little behavior about.
Uh-huh.
To think about, have we seen evidence of this, have we seen this displayed at board meetings, has it been in the board reports, has it been in the superintendent's reports?
Well, that's the other thing, I want to talk about some of the data. Because board members are getting data all the time. Your board report is a source of data. You shouldn't have to print every single board report and put it in the data, right, list, the document list. That is stuff that we do as board members have a responsibility to pay attention to the information that we're getting throughout the year. I'm not expecting there to be this massive accumulation of data and documents at the end of the year in terms of the evaluations. So there are things that you can even say this was in 3 board reports.
And my board reports are pretty standard, we talk about enrollment, we talk about attendance, we talk about my community events, we talk about professional development that we've attended, come back to report. We talk about, you know, in the principal's reports, I have her sharing specific data on our formative assessments, you know, data on where we are with gifted ed, where are we with, I have the directors presenting SPED, transportation, technology, we rotated all discipline, quarterly, you know, so all of those at the board meetings, I see a lot of this as evidence that principal reports, that superintendent's report, and board meeting agenda items, right, where we're being transparent and discussing trends and what's working and not working.
So for the evaluation, you just want to pull those documents that are highlights. And like I said before, one document might cover 10 indicators. You just have to see, you know, where it belongs or where it fits in. Perfect. So, Kelly, do you have any questions?
No, I think this is all very good. I think we're really good at overcomplicating this.
Uh-huh.
So I think I was all listening on that.
Okay, good. Well, we did record it, so hopefully, board members will listen to it at a later date, even if they're not, since it's not here. Yeah, and the other thing is, like, I can come back and do it. There's no limit, so.
Maybe after, we will our new board member orientation, and then we can kind of regroup to see if.
And we will be talking about superintendent evaluation and then board self-evaluation, and we already do board rotation. I think it's important to have, you know, we don't kind of need a PC on that.
Is this the board self-evaluation, is the same?
So the board self-evaluation, it is, no, we created a new one maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago. It's an online survey from SurveyMonkey. There's 5 pillars of board governance in it. The questions, there's about 69 or 70 questions. And then, when every board member and the superintendent takes that, and then we create a detailed report that we can dig to, so you have some idea of where you are. Each of the pillars has member benchmarks in it.
So we did that, we did do that one, and, yeah, we did it once.
Yeah.
And, I think it must have just come out because we did it maybe a hundred years ago.
I did see that you did it. I was.
You did it, and the thing is that with the data, the way it comes back, is there's so new, but you taking it 6 people, it's, you know, all of our.
Well, did you get the detailed report, or did you just get the standard report? Because the standard report is just the 5 pillars
You can graph.
with the graph. The detailed report which used to cost money, it no longer costs any money, it's just part of our membership.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah. It used to be $250.
Oh,
We were
right.
like, a couple years ago, we were like, why would we charge this?
Yes.
So we decided, it's been 2 years in January, that we said, you don't have to pick these things that won't work. If you want facilitation for us to help you facilitate conversation around the things that won't work, we can provide that for you, but just like we're doing right now. But the report itself, I mean, you probably didn't get the detailed report, because you would not say that it was such a report, because there is massive amounts of data. Yeah.
Well, good, so that gives me something to look to.
Yeah. And then on Wednesday, we are doing a webinar on board self-evaluation and superintendent evaluation. The board in Kyrene and the board in Paulina, they did the pilot of the superintendent evaluation and concurrently did the board self-evaluation. And so the superintendent from Kyrene is going to be on the webinar and talk about how powerful.
That's Wednesday next week.
Yeah.
And Annie, she registered all of us for all of those webinars,
Okay.
and she put them on the calendar, because I did go through and have her put in all those webinars.
And you're registered, you can listen live, you can get recordings.
Kelly, thank you.
Get some rest, drink lots of vitamin C.
Alrighty, thanks.
Hey, thanks for calling in. though.
Thank you, Kelly, thanks for calling in.
Bye.
She's got a, her two oldest kids went to college for the most part. And then one's a junior, and the other one graduated. And then she's got second grade. And mine had been here since kindergarten, pretty recently. So my daughter's now 8 and my son's 11.
So what's the high school duties and stuff?
They have 2, so they go to the Walmart Rose, which is in the room. But it means a lot to me because myself as a kid, I went to 3 high schools, 4 different elementary schools, 2 middle schools. You know, so it's, you know, it's just great. You know, especially if they're high school. I was telling her that I could get dinner at my office and could go from the you know, that was a big hit.